Hello everyone. In our today's topic, we will going to drop a truth bomb in front of you. Because in our today's topic, we will going to discuss the US inflation, which has touched 8.5% in comparison of last month. It is highest since 1981. Not only that, the US stock market losses are hitting the US citizen harder than anyone ever thought. It wipes out 9 to 10 trillion dollars of America's wealth. Anyway, before going into the stock market losses, we will first discuss the US inflation and why it is in such shape, and why US is slowly moving towards recession and dragging the world towards the recession with itself. We are witnessing the price rise in the United States for every essential goods. The cost of petrol, diesel, food and the other necessities jumped in the October to its zenith. Because of the constant price rise, the raising inflation in the United States to a new 4-decade high, and the giving American households no respite from rising cost. Apart from the inflated price in everyday necessities, the cost of housing and the rent intensifying the pressure on households. That will going to wipe out the pay gains for the common Americans. One of the main reasons of the inflation in the United States is directly related to the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve is aggressively increasing the interest rate for the dollar. When Federal Reserve increases the interest rate, it typically increases the interest rate throughout the economy. They are doing it to make the dollar stronger. By making the dollar stronger, the United States are trying to attract the investment capital from the investors abroad, seeking high returns on bonds and interest rate products. But it will also going to affect the US dollar exchange rate versus other currencies. And that has become problematic for the US economy. As the dollar is getting stronger, the other currencies or the other countries are weakening. Because of that, the countries are trying to go away from the dollar-based economy to the local currency-based economy because they are trying to survive. And it is affecting the US internal economy and the stock market. Because of that, we are witnessing the huge stock slump every day from the US market. It looks like US market is bleeding, and it will continue to bleed if the US will not going to revoke the ban on the Russian energy sale. It is up to the United States what the United States will going to do. And I am not here to lecture the United States what they will going to do, because I am not in the position to lecture them. Anyway, let's get back to our discussion. I hope all of you understand or all of you know about the CPI. The CPI means Consumer Price Index. The consumer price in the United States has risen 8.2% in September in comparison of 2021. On a month-to-month basis, the price increased 0.4% from August to September. If we will going to compare with the July to August, during the July to August, the price increased only 0.1% rate, which is lower in comparison of 0.4%. Apart from food and energy, the so-called core inflation jumped last September. The core inflation climbed 0.6% from August to September and 6.6% over the last 12 months. The yearly core figure is the biggest increase in 40 years. Basically, the core prices typically provide the clearer pictures of underlying price trends. After releasing this data, the world market and the US market plummeted sharply. In Indian market, the Sensex lost 1,100 points in a day. The Dow Jones Industrial Average Futures moving from several hundred points up to the 400 points, declining in a seconds. The markets in Europe is also tumbled as well. Excluding food and the energy, the inflation jumped 6.6%, the first rate since 1982. The Federal Reserve has already raised the interest rate 5 times since March, opting from unusual large hikes in the recent months that have unsettled the financial markets and led to sharp slowdown in the sectors like housing. They are trying to make the borrowing more expensive. By making the borrowing more expensive, the Fed is trying to reduce the demand, especially the big ticket items such as cars and homes, then ease the pressure pushing the prices up. By doing so, I mean by slowing the economical activity, they are trying to pushing this economy into the recession. This condition raised the level of uncertainty and is bringing more bad news for the US economy, particularly for the consumers. According to the current situation, the Fed will continuously push the interest of the dollar higher to the higher. It will be more difficult for the common Americans, and it will going to push the rest of the world into the catastrophic situation. The inflation is also pushing the American stock markets to its nadir. The falling stock market had wiped out more than $9 trillion value of the America's wealth from the US household, and that put more pressure on the family balance sheets and spending. The America's holding of corporate equities and the mutual fund share fell from $33 trillion at the end of the second quarter, down from $42 trillion at the start of the year. On the basis of this data, if the stock market will continuously go on this way, then it will going to create ripple through the economy. It will going to add the pressure to the America's balance sheet and possibly hurting spending, borrowing and investing. The top 10% of the Americans have already lost over $8 trillion in the stock market wealth this year, which marks a 22% decline in their stock wealth. The top 1% Americans have lost over $5 trillion in the stock market wealth, and the bottom 50% have lost about $70 billion in the stock market. The losses mark a massive and the sudden reversal for the shareholders who saw the record wealth creation from the soaring stocks since the pandemic. The super rich will going to lost most of his wealth, but it has resulted in declining the inequality slightly. The stock loss will going to reduce the consumer spending by $54 billion in the current year. And according to the chief executive of JP Morgan, the Chase Jamie Dimon, the American economy will going to be the recession by the end of the quarter 2 in 2023. Anticipating a recession, the Dimon said that the panic will hit the credit markets that could wipe out an additional 20% of value from the US stocks. And he also explained the reason behind the upcoming recession. He blamed the Russia special military operation against Ukraine and the unprecedented rise in the interest rate as the factors enabling the recession in mid-2023. The American economical fallout will have consequences for the European economy as well, which is already dwindling situations. The Standard and the Poor's 500 is already 20% down this year along with the New York Stock Exchange and the Dow Jones. Now the question is how it will going to affect the US midterm elections. The Joe Biden is in big shit right now because his foreign policy and the domestic policy has proven to be disastrous. He failed to convince the Saudi Arabia to pump the more oil. Over that, the OPEC Plus cut 2 million barrel production of oil next month. And domestically, he is maintaining the open border policy. Because of that, the 2 million migrants have flooded through the United States. The US is not maintaining the southern border properly the way they should maintain it. Because of that, his rating is constantly slumping. Recently, according to the Reuters opinions poll, 65% Americans have disapproved his presidency. Only 35% accepted him as a president of the United States. So things are not in good swing for the United States president. But he is giving the billions of dollars as a military aid to the Ukraine in the name of democracy, liberty and sovereignty. Therefore, in my words, the US president have to save his home first and then he have to go outside for the countries like the Ukraine. Otherwise, the strategic partner, the friends of the United States will going to leave this country in the middle of the desert. Although the US is already standing in the middle of the desert, I would like to give you some examples why the US hegemony is ending in today's time. You are witnessing the effort of de-dollarizing the world from the China, Russia, India, even Brazil and Argentina. If these economics will be able to decouple their economy from the dollar, then what will be left for the United States? The US is threatening Saudis, Emiratis and India to take the neutral stand on the Ukraine crisis. The US is trying to punish these countries by reviewing their relationship with these countries. They are trying to import the oil from Venezuela, which they previously opposed. So this is their own steps are exposing themselves as an propaganda machine. So United States is like a quicksand. They will going to make the friend with anyone when needed, but they won't take the seconds to spit that friend away when their need will be fulfilled. So US has to be careful about their own economy because this is their artificial made, which they created by poking Russia through Ukraine, because they made this war as a business and peace as an excuse. Now about today's questions. The first question is, which institution released the Living Planet Report 2022? The first option is World Wide Fund, acronym is WWF. Second option is UNEP. Third option is UNESCO. Fourth option is FAO. The second question is, which institution launched the Education 4.0 India report? First option is IMF. Second option is WEF. Third option is World Bank. Fourth option is UNICEF. So this is the end of the topic. If you have any questions or other kinds of inquiry, then please mail me to my email address, which is tuhin.pawar.academy@gmail.com. Thank you very much. Thank you for your support. I hope you will going to find my topic informative.